Hey friends, hi. My name is Rose AJ Coates, Coach Rose AJ Coates. I'm 56 years old. I'm from Tacoma, Washington. I've been married for 37 years. I have a 36-year-old daughter and fraternal twin granddaughters who are 7, who I call my La Nietas. And I also have my beautiful, beautiful dog named Miss Pumpkin, who's almost 11. So I'm a lifelong learner and adventurer. So welcome to this channel, which is Carnivore Girl for Life. So I am going to be reading from my notes, so please excuse me. My abnormal addictive eating started when I was 3.5 years old as a result of being abused by my biological father from the time that I was 3.5 till I was 17. Um, as a young child, I would eat dry dog food, petroleum jelly, raw ground beef, literally anything that I could get my hands on. I was also severely depressed and suicidal in my early years. I spent my middle school years and high school years binging on fast food, chips, soda, cookies. My weight was never an issue, meaning that it was not outwardly apparent that I had abnormal eating habits. My weight, as a matter of fact, I looked underweight for a lot of my years. And I started dieting actually when I was 12. I would drink Tab, use Dexatrim, X-Lax. I would binge, starve, and overeat compulsively. So all that behavior started when I was 12. And then at 18 and a half, I got married. I had my daughter shortly before my 20th birthday. And the whole time that I was pregnant, I ate excessively, compulsively, uncontrollably. I binged on junk food, fast food, and I was still severely depressed. After I had my daughter, I weighed 300 plus pounds, and the scale only went up to 300. So I may have been considerably heavier than 300, but I don't know that for sure. So after having my daughter, I relentlessly tried to lose weight. I yo-yo dieted, starved, binge compulsively, overate, and I was literally food obsessed. Everything I did revolved around food. A few years of the diet, a few of the diet fads that I tried were Weight Watchers, Plexus Visalis, Isogenics, Beachbody like 6 times, every starvation diet. And then between 2018 and 2020, I also did the Prove It ketones, the ketogenic diet. So that was my introduction to the ketogenic diet, actually through the ketones. And I also tried being vegan, vegetarian, flexitarian, and none of these worked, believe it or not. So in March 2002, I tossed out my scale for a year and a half and I started counting calories, basically calories in, calories out, and began over exercising. I weighed myself. So when I weighed myself on my birthday, a year and a half later on September the 1st, 2003, when I was 46 years old, I weighed in at about 200 pounds. Um, with some more hard work, over exercising, and extreme dieting, I eventually leveled out at 190 pounds. I spent the next several years between 2002 and 2016 obsessively counting calories, binging, over exercising, just to sustain this weight loss. I was even featured on the Today Show with Joy Bauer in 2008 and 2012. They even showed what my typical day of food looked like. So they had a big buffet table set up, and it was literally like, this was for my before I had lost the weight and got on the show. They showed hot dogs, buns, honey buns, chips, Snickers, bars, the whole nine. Just a lot of junk food, cereal, everything was just like laid out. And so I did this dramatic weight loss, eating a king size Snickers bar every day, believe it or not, and believing that my weight loss was going to be a success. It was going to be a success just because of the calorie counting. I never found peace until I found carnivore. Okay. So in 2016, my weight started creeping up, and by June of 28, I was back at 238.8. And although it wasn't 300 pounds, I still felt like a failure because what I was doing was no longer working. I couldn't out exercise a bad diet. No matter how much I restricted, binged, used laxatives, the whole nine, or diet pills, nothing worked. Nothing worked. So in June 2018, I had hit my absolute rock bottom. My mental health was not good, and I'd reached a total burnout. I was depressed. I was a functioning person, but I was really depressed. My body ached, and I was questioning, what am I doing here? This was pointless. I was unhappy, miserable, and I was constantly thinking about food. So, although I had maintained a good stretch of weight loss, it was at a very high price, a very taxing mental high price, a physical high price, if you know what I'm saying, like the over exercising and the never resting and stuff like that, just to maintain a certain weight. I was constantly thinking about food, going through menopause, and I had literally hit rock bottom. I made a decision in 2018 to leave my career after 23 years of corrections because I heard very distinctively God tell me that if I tried to get to my retirement, which was in 7 years, a 30-year retirement, um, 7 years away, I'd fall into a deep depression and never quite recover. So I left service in April of 2019, and I cashed out my retirement so that I could live a few years with taking a couple of years off from formal employment and focus on getting better. In June 2018, I found out about exogenous ketones and ended up spending thousands of dollars on exogenous ketones because I thought that this would be a last-ditch effort in order to be able to drink this supplement and still continue to eat anything that I wanted and give it one more shot with this diet fix gimmick. I didn't know that this would be a turning point for me. I just thought it was a last-ditch effort for me to try to get better mentally, physically, and emotionally. But it was just another diet scheme. So it took me a couple of years to figure out that it would be the hard work of me working on me and changing my foods in order to get well. So December 2nd, 2018, I decided to start the ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting simultaneously. And I got to tell you guys, it was a pure shit show. I was a hot mess express from the Pacific Northwest. Although I was well versed, well educated, it was hard. Change was hard. Dropping addictions from anything is hard. You can't just drop it. You have to do the work, right? And I was still trying to take the easy way out, guys. So it was a complete shit show in the beginning. And after a few months, I settled in on OMAD. And I still do OMAD to this day. And the reason why I settled in on OMAD very quickly was because I started out with a 12-hour eating window. And I said, well, I will gradually ratchet down my eating window from 12 hours. I'll be very gentle. I'll ratchet it down from 12 hours, and then titrate down to 10 and then 9, 8, 7, 6, just count down. But what I quickly found is that I was still obsessing about food. I was trying to do the 3 meals, the balance, the meals, and all that good stuff, to spread my food between 3 meals, and it just wasn't working because I was still constantly thinking about food. And the first meal of the day was never enough. The second meal was never enough. The third meal was never enough. So by me automatically cluing in and just doing OMAD, that created a calmness within me. I knew what time I was going to eat. I knew what I was going to eat, and it was going to be done and over with. So that still works for me to this day. And what I encourage people to do is to do a lot of trial and error and see what actually works for you. So kept being triggered. Oh, and then so being on the ketogenic diet was really rad, but to be quite honest, I was being triggered a lot because I'm a sugar, carb, food, emotional overeating, binge eater, compulsive overeater, whatever you want to call it. I raise my hand. I am that person. So with the ketogenic diet, it worked until it didn't work, right? Because I was trying to make the standard American diet foods ketogenic style, right? And so although I was doing ketogenic, counting my carbs and yada, 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 I was still being triggered by the flour, the almond flour, the sugar, the nuts, just on and on and on. Everything that I put in my mouth made me want more and more and more. So I started losing weight even though I was binging. And in January 2020, I decided to go carnivore. And it was not an easy ride because I was still working on me a year and a half, 2.5 years into the game. But my weight stabilized to 170, 175 by March of 2020. I'm 6 feet tall. So my actual weight, set point weight, is probably about 180. And the reason I share this is because I wanted to go into the Army when I was 17, 18, right? And I really remember taking the ASVAB test, and I really, really remember them saying that I had to get down to 161 pounds at 6 feet tall at 17 years old. Everything that I did, from drinking water all day to just eating crackers to starving myself, nothing worked. My weight stayed at 180 pounds. It never budged below that, regardless of all the damage that I did to my body. So that's the reason why I remember that my weight as a teenager leveled out at 180. And because of wanting to go into the Army. So I couldn't go into the Army because I was 180 pounds instead of 161. So March 2020, my weight stabilized while on carnivore. And I had gotten so lean, which is great because I work out a lot still. I lift weights, yada, yada, yada. And this is the thing, folks. I had several off days, several cheat meals during 2020. But those cheat meals and those off days quickly turned into like a runaway freight train. A whole week, it would take a whole week for me of eating off plan just to get back on plan, right? And during this time from 2019 forward to today, I was taking several certification courses, intermittent fasting, the ketogenic diet, life and wellness coaching. I went to the Primal Health Coach Institute, and I'm currently in Become a Health and Life Coach training certification through the Health Coach Institute. So I'm constantly learning, but even with all that training and certification, what ended up happening is Benton Johnson, who does the sugar, who developed the sugar assessment protocol to help people find out if they are really literally pathologically addicted to sugar. And, the assessment tool, it kind of goes through your whole life so you can see where this addiction to sugar, flour, or refined foods started. So that was one of the courses that I took in 2020, okay? And I was still in denial, even though I was understanding that there were foods that I couldn't eat without going overboard. This had been going on all my life. Carnivore helped me to titrate that down. But when I took time off for like a special day, or because I wanted to cheat, or because it was Easter, or because it was the 4th of July, whatever the reason was, that I took off from eating the carnivore diet, I would spiral, like I said earlier. Instead of me coming back to it the next day, it would take 3, 4, 5 days, sometimes a week. So my last organized binge, when I say organized, that means I planned it out. I knew where I was going to go, what I was going to do, what I was going to eat, the whole nine. It was in August of 2020. So what had happened was, in my mind, I said, well, September the 1st is my birthday. I will take my birthday off, eat anything under the sun that I wanted. And there was this one teriyaki place that I loved. And I said, oh, I'll have the teriyaki, and I'll go to Mazatlan. I just had all this stuff planned out. Well, me and my girlfriend, we went on a 2-day trip in August, like a 2-day trip to the ocean. And I was like, oh, well, I can eat at the Mexican restaurant. I just won't have any of the chips. I'll just have the cheese, the salsa, and lots of meat, right? That didn't work. I ended up ordering what I would normally order at a Mexican restaurant. So that was fail number 1. Fail number 2, because we were like at a beach resort, I walked around, I got ice cream, fresh baked waffle cone ice cream. There was like pastries, there was like just all this stuff. And my friend ended up going to visit one of her friends. So I just hung out by myself at the hotel, kind of hung around town. And I spent the whole time eating, you guys. I spent the whole time eating. I bought chips, ice cream, everything under the sun. And it all started with me intentionally intending to do well at the Mexican restaurant and just have the sour cream, the what is it called? Like the cheese and the meat. But I had beans, I had the chips, I had everything under the sun. So even with that, and then we ended up going out to dinner, the 2 nights we were there, and I just kept eating and eating and eating. On the way back into town, so this might have been 2.5 days, I said, oh, let me run into Safeway. I'm going to get some chow mein, some rice, and some like sweet and sour pork. That'll hold me over till I get home. And then I think 2 days later, I went for a photo shoot that I was scheduled for. It was on the calendar for a couple of months. So I was going for a photo shoot. Because I was still on my binge, my banger, whatever you want to call it, before the photo shoot went, I said, well, I'll just go to the local grocery store on the way, get some cookies, get a single serving of cake, get some chips, some Pringles, just the whole nine. It was a shit show, you guys. So I ate all that on the way over to the photo shoot. I did the photo shoot. After the photo shoot, I left, went to Mazatlan, and got the real nachos that I wanted with all the meat, all the jalapenos, everything on it, the sour cream, ate that, and then went on home like nothing had happened. Then I went to go meet a friend later to do something. And then after meeting her, I went to the original teriyaki place that I wanted to go. This is all in a couple of days time frame. But the teriyaki, the going to the grocery store, the eating at Mazatlan, the big, huge family-sized nacho, all of that was in one day, the day that I had my photo shoot. No shit, it was a shit show, okay? So all that went down, and then I had to talk with myself. I said, self, you're not going to make it to September the 1st, because it was August 20th. So that was August 20th. I said, enough is enough. So what I did was I just reined it in. I went through the withdrawals, got my ish together. And then on September the 1st, 2020, what ended up happening is I did a full marathon, a full virtual marathon. Some friends came out to celebrate with me and to do the full marathon. But I treated myself, what I treated myself to was on the waterfront. They had like cheese and what do you call it? Like meat, salami and cheese. So at the market, so I bought that as a splurge and kept it pushing and kept it pushing. Y'all, it was hard. It was hard. Okay. So Yeah, so through that sugar assessment that I had, I learned that I had been addicted to sweets, sugar, refined carbs, everything since I was 3.5. Okay. All throughout high school, all throughout everything that I found out that I was addicted. But I was also in denial, y'all. Okay. And so that explained to me why I kept binging. I finally understood that if I ingested something that didn't agree with me, that would create the thoughts, I want more and more and more. I just finally figured out I couldn't do that. So, let me see. So yeah, so I realized that there's some foods that I could never have again because of the drug-like effects it had on my brain, health, and my body. So I remained strict carnivore for the rest of 2020. And in 2021, January 2021, I decided to slowly reintroduce foods. And it still was a shit show and a disaster. So I started off very gently, like with avocados. I was like, girl, let's do the avocados. You can do the avocados, which was fine. And then I moved on to like cashews and almonds. It wasn't good. Luna bars and Quest bars. So the cashews, it started out, I'll buy a single serving pack. My mind started racing, and I was like, girl, it's just because it's back in your system. Let's wait it out. It turned into two single serving packs. And then the next thing you know, I was having a 16-ounce container. And then the next thing you know, it was just full blown cashew almond my jam. I just couldn't give them up until finally I said enough is enough. And then I also was experimenting during that time with different vegetables. The vegetables didn't bother me too much or create a craving, but like blueberries, they were too sweet. It was off the chain, so I had to cut that shit out. I didn't try apples or anything like that. But what I did do, y'all, Quest bars. I don't know if you're familiar with Quest bars, but what I did is I was like, okay, let me try these Quest bars because see, if something like a Quest bar is in my house, I won't rest until they are all gone. So I bought a box of four, had lots of meat with it, and I was like, oh, this is going to be fine. What had happened was I've never experienced vertigo. I've never had vertigo. I ate those four Quest bars in one sitting along with the meat that I had for the evening. There was immediate repercussions. I started experiencing symptoms of vertigo. I couldn't walk straight. I had to keep my ass in a chair for a while. I had to go upstairs to get ready for bed. It was like me holding on to the walls. So I don't know what was in the Quest bars or if my system was cleaned out and I was finally able to respond to what my body was throwing at me. The next morning, I was supposed to be at my running group. I couldn't make it to my running group. It was about 2 or 3 o'clock the next day before I could even get in the car and drive anywhere. And to be quite honest with you, I probably shouldn't have been driving anywhere, but I wanted to go to Costco, okay? I wanted to go to Costco. So I took the streets. I didn't get on the freeway just in case I had to pull over, on a shoulder or something like that or a parking lot. But y'all, when you get your system cleaned out, your body has always been talking to you all this time. It's been talking to you, but you might not have been hearing it knock. You might not have been hearing it drop the symptoms to what was really going on because of all the stuff you might have been consuming, right? So I had never had vertigo before then. Now, if I eat something that doesn't agree with me and I get kind of woozy, I ain't about to go down for some vertigo, y'all. So I just drop it I don't even question it. So right now, where I'm at is I want to help people who were once like me. In 2018, I had hit my ultimate rock bottom, meaning I did not know which way was up. I was overworked, stressed, depressed, constantly eating food. I was gaining weight because I was going through perimenopause and finally menopause. And I had a lot of brain fog. I was just like, what's the purpose of doing this? What's the purpose of me working so hard? What really is the purpose? And as I said earlier, I don't even know if I said earlier, but I ended up leaving service and cashing out my retirement to focus on me. So, guys, I want to be able to help people that might be on that roller coaster, high blood sugar, pre-diabetic, diabetic, hormonal issues, whatever's going on. I want to be able to help people. So that's the reason that I'm starting this channel, Carnivore Girl for Life. So I had danced all over for like over 4.5 years, really trying to figure out what would work for me. I want to be able to help people to get straight to the point, straight, no chaser, and just get as healthy as possible, as quickly as possible, and to have their mental health be on point. Now, I do want to say that I've always experienced depression since I was a child. I've always experienced depression as a child. I've never been medicated. I've never sought professional help because when I was growing up, it was always said, what happens in this house stays in this house. If you ask for help, you're weak. And actually, the couple of times that I did ask for help, I tried to tell my aunts, I tried to tell my counselor at school. They turned on me, and I ended up being the black sheep of the family. So what did I do? I stopped asking for help. But I did help myself in ways such as constantly reading books, constantly learning, watching Phil Donahue, watching Oprah Winfrey, watching all these talk shows. I took in a lot of information. And when I was ready, I started applying it, right? So I don't ever want you or the next person to not raise their hand and ask for help. And by me helping others, I'm helping myself also. So where I'm at right now, and I want to really quickly interject here. There was a period of time in my life, let me see. I do want to inject from like 1997 to 2001, about those 3 years. Alcohol was quickly becoming a second addiction. I was consuming a large amount of alcohol on my weekends, my weekends from work, right? So what I realized is that I had to make a decision because I didn't want to be that type of a role model for my daughter. I didn't want her to see me drinking, abusing alcohol, and abusing food, and abusing whatever else comes my way. Now, I made the cognitive decision because I understood that it was not a good situation for my daughter to see me doing that on my weekends, right? So I pushed alcohol to the side. I didn't stop drinking, but I stopped drinking, in concentrated forms on my weekend and just kept on with the food. And when I say that, I'm saying this to say is that there can be multiple addictions going on at one time. So sometimes, if you have 2 or 3 things that you're fascinated with and you get overindulged with, the main thing for me has always been food, and it probably will always be food. And I will always say that I'm an addict, food addict in recovery. It's in remission right now, right? So long as I work on taking care of myself and doing what I know to be true for me, I will hopefully keep this food addiction and other addictions in remission for the rest of my life. But this is what happens when you have an addict brain. It's one disease, one addiction with multiple outlets. Like you have multiple outlets in your home, but it has one source of power, which is the electricity. It's the same thing when you have an addict brain or you're an addict. The addiction can take on many forms. So for me, the first and foremost was food. The second was alcohol. Well, actually growing up, the second was shopping, eating, shopping, right? And so when I discovered exercise at about 20, it became exercise. So it was food, exercise, shopping, alcohol, hairstyles. I was obsessed. I always had to have my hair on point, one hair strand out of place. I had to get it redone. So my hairstyles, um, clothing, everything. So there was probably like 6 or 7 different multiple addictions at play at one time. So if you think you've got a handle on food and that has always been a problem for you, but you're picking up somewhere else, meaning that, you might be shopping more, or you are having 4 jobs, or you're over exercising, or you're in everybody else's business but your own, right? So you can have your addiction play out in different ways, through multiple ways, right? But it's one addiction, one thing. So right now, what I eat on a routine basis, right now, what my palate is, what I've settled in on, because I reverted back to being full carnivore after all that experimentation, by June of 2021. I just was like, you know what, this is it. This is it. I just need to stay on this path because my mental health is at stake every step of the way, right? I used to think I was crazy, but if somebody would have said it's just because I was having blood sugar surges, my insulin was out of control, the blood sugar was out of control because of the food that I was eating. If I had been clued in, I don't even know if I would have listened, to be quite honest, but if I had been clued in, that may have saved me a lot of heartache, a lot of stress, and a lot of money, and a lot of time and effort, right? So right now, what I eat on a routine, regular, daily basis in general is I have to have my black coffee. Y'all, look, I've gone to different interval times without coffee just to see. And yes, coffee is at the top of my list to keep my sanity in check. Black coffee every day. And I eat ground beef. I eat hamburger patties, chuck roast, pot roast, and 6 to 8 eggs daily. Now, I don't eat all this in one day, don't get me wrong, and beef hot dogs. And I use seasoning, okay? So for some people, they might say that's not 110% carnivore. So let me just say I'm 90% carnivore. I'm meat-based. It is what it is. I figured out what works for me. And then occasionally, depending on how things are going and if things are on sale, I'll have ribeyes, turkey burgers, salmon patties, and then the avocados come in once in a while when I just have that inkling that I want to have an avocado. And then cheese is the same way. I don't get really necessarily hooked on cheese, but I do like cheese, but it's not a part of my everyday program. Pork rinds are probably like once a week. They're occasional. And then just plain Greek full fat yogurt is my jam. I seldom have ground turkey, and I very, very, very seldom have packaged foods. So that's where I'm at. And then prior to carnivore, just as a little recap, prior to carnivore, I was depressed about 50% of the time. I was food obsessed, sugar, carb, fast food, and processed food addicted. And I over exercised, I over shopped, I overdid my hair, I just overdid everything. Alcohol was a part of my scheme or setup for a while, for about 3 years. It was a continual weekend thing where I was a heavy drinker, wouldn't go throughout my weekend without having the drinks. Then I pumped the brakes, and then I would just be like drinking, like after, I ran a race or something, I would drink a 6 pack a beer, and stuff like that. But it was like after a race, it would just be like one of those things. It wasn't like really planned, but I could put away some beer, don't get me wrong. And in October of 2018, so that was what, 5 years ago, that was my last drink. I haven't had a drink since October 2018, praise God, right? And then yes, so prior to carnivore, I had mental wellness issues. It was just not good. Unstable blood sugar and mood swings. So I want to remind you that I do carnivore and intermittent fasting. So I have been an intermittent faster since December 2nd, 2018. I paired that with the ketogenic diet and I continue to do one meal a day. So I've been doing that for almost 5 years. So after my commitment to carnivore full on, my food, sugar, compulsive eating, and diet brain are all in remission. I don't believe any of these conditions will ever fully go away. If the right stressors are in place and I'm not aware and taking care of myself and being proactive, these can come back to life again. So that's why I say they're in remission. So I have good energy. My mood and depression only makes, my depression only makes an appearance once in a while. And I have no brain fog and I can think clearly. And it's like a veil has actually been lifted from me. Okay. So y'all, thank you for listening to this introduction to Carnivore Girl for Life. My goal with this channel is to share my life experiences, to interview other people that are on the road to becoming a carnivore or are a carnivore or that practice intermittent fasting. And I am a coach, so I will be sharing some of my client success stories and about different protocols that I've shared with them. And you can always reach me here to inquire about my coaching services. And if you have a success story that you would like to share, please hit a sister up because I would love to have the opportunity to share your story. Thank you so much for your time today, and I look forward to future conversations. All right, bye-bye.